And oh my god. Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Stephanie. This is the week 34, August the 18th through the 24th weekly wrap up. As I said, this is the week 34 weekly wrap up from August the 18th through the 24th. Woo! I'm very surprised the fact that I got 12 books read, and I also did a MCU vlog for you guys that's coming out on Tuesday. Wow. Wowzer. If you don't know, an MCU marathon is watching all 22 available, well, 21 available movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And me and the son did it in chronological timeline order over 7 days. So you guys get to see that progression. Yay. Okay. Don't want to spoil that video because, woo, it should be real cute. I hope you guys will check it out on Tuesday. But I actually got 12 books read in that time. Yes, it took a lot. I did a buddy read and I read a whole bunch of arcs. Oh my goodness. So what I did, just to give you a little insight, is that every morning I would read a book before I got up to do the movie-a-thon before he goes back to school. By the way, that's why we did it. It's because he goes back to school on Monday. Hallelujah. Tomorrow, yes, tomorrow he's back in school and I will be back looking for a job. Not to get on a downer, so we're gonna get into the books that I read last week because there are a lot and I don't want to make this a super long video like every week, right? The first book that I finished was Bree's Blessing by Pearl Tate. I placed this in sci-fi romance. I read this for Genre-a-thon. I give it 4 stars. I give it 4 Steam fans. I listened to it as an audiobook because it was gifted to me by the narrator, Randy Johnson. And I actually heard this book. I heard a little snippet sample of it when Randy put it on Twitter and he was like, hey, you know, does anybody want to listen to this? And I was like, right here. Yes, please. I will listen to it for you. And he sent me the code and it was great. I really, really enjoyed this story. This story follows Hannah, who is a astronaut scientist. She's on a star lab that is orbiting Mars, and Bryn, who is an alien that ends up getting on the lab, and before the lab destructs and blows up, he takes Hannah with him onto his ship. Well, his society is run by the ladies and figures out that Hannah is his fated mate, and I was here for it. Here for it. It was sexy, it was sweet in some ways, it was very forward in thinking because Bryn had never found, or his community of aliens had never found human mates before, and fated mates had died off, so they were just sort of in these harems where the lady, so I guess it would be a reverse harem, whatever. And for him to find his fated mate in a human, it was like crazy, and I was here for it. I really, really enjoyed it. Now, I will say that the male voice, I think it's Randy's, I'm not sure, is a little gruff, so if you're not into that gruff kind of gravelly voice, it may turn you off. But when I listen to audiobooks, I listen to them sped up, so it came off a little better for me. It really set me in that tone of having these very big alien, you know, masculine sort of guys, and I was here for it. I really, really enjoyed it. And there's a second narrator. I'm sorry, I forgot to get her name, but that voice is Hannah, and I really like that. And I thought it was really good. I think you guys should go check it out, especially if you're into alien sexy time. The next book that I finished was A Playing House by Ruby Lang. I placed this in contemporary. This is a novella. I give it 4 stars. I give it 2 Steam fans. I read it as an arc. for Review-a-thon, which is still going on through NetGalley, and I really enjoyed this. It has to deal somewhat with fake dating. It does have some other key aspects into it. So Faye is a industrial engineer, and she reevaluates communities and things like that. Her firm, which she started, is sort of scoping out the area and trying to get contracts in New York. So when she's on a house tour, because I guess they do that in New York, they go into people's houses and look at them. It's weird. It was a little weird, but it was real interesting. So they're going into these different people's houses and looking at them, and you know, they're potential buyers, but at the same time they're not. Well, this guy starts hitting on her, and she ends up seeing Oliver, who she knew sort of back in the day, and sort of pretends to be coupled up with him. And then they end up going to a couple different houses, and both of them are sort of trying to find their way. Oliver is still living at home, but there are reasons for him to be still living at home, and they're very, you know, understandable. And I really, really enjoyed this. This book was written by a author of color as well. The next book that I finished was That Forever Girl, Getting Lucky #2 by Megan Quinn. I placed this in contemporary. I give it 5 stars. I give it 3 Steam fans. I read it as an ARC for Review-a-thon. Hallelujah, I was so happy to get this. Let me just tell you, this book follows Rogan, who is the next brother in the Port Snow sort of series. If you read the first book in the Getting Lucky series, you know that there are 4 brothers in this, and Rogan is one of them. So Rogan and Harper were high school and small town sweethearts. They ended up going to college together, and then something happens, and you spend this entire story sort of learning their history, learning why they don't like each other, and why it's so hard for both of them to live in this small town together. And I really, really loved all of the flashbacks and connection. I'm not a big flashback person when it comes to stories. I think sometimes it sort of throws you out of the situation, but Megan did an amazing job at bringing those flashbacks to give you the emotion that you needed to give you the understanding of this couple on why they sort of fell out, why they were doing the things that they were doing. And it was just so good. It was so good. I was in the emotions with these 2 characters through the entire book, and I loved it. Loved it. And by the way, that releases in a couple days, so make sure you go check that out. The next book that I finished was Try, which is Temptation #1 by Ella Frank. This is placed in erotic LGBT category. I still give it 4 stars. I give it 5 Steam fans. Now that I'm doing Steam fans, this is a reread, which was the buddy read that I did with Xavier or Charles from Books on Stereo. So make sure you go check him out. I'll leave his link down in the description box. So if you want to hear his thoughts on this read, then you know, you can check that out. But this is a reread for me. I read this back in 2015, and it still holds up in the 4-star rating for me. So this book follows Logan and Tate. Logan is a lawyer, and Tate is a bartender. They find out that they have an attraction to each other. Logan, you sort of open up with Logan sleeping with a woman, and then he goes into the bar that he normally visits, what have you, after a long day of being a lawyer and dealing with cases and people and stuff like that. And then they find out they have another connection besides the sexual connection, that they are, you know, attracted to each other. And it goes from there. This is the beginning of their story. This is a 6-book series. I have only read the first 3 books when they came out in 2015 or so, 2012. Well, it was written in 2012. I read it in 2015. I did do a full series video of it, so I'll leave that down in the description box as well if you want to go check out my initial feelings. That video did have to get taken down at one point because I think people were offended by the cover. They're pretty steamy, and this book is pretty steamy. I will say that. And the other thing that I learned from rereading this is that now that I have a different lens, I wouldn't say a different lens, a wider lens of what the book community sort of looks at when they look at a book. I will say that some of the younger readers that are now reading more mature, natured books are going to find this as fetishizing. I'm just going to say that. I don't. I loved it. I thought it was hot. I thought it was sexy. And if you think I'm fetishizing, whatever, come at me, please. I'm an adult. Oof. And, you know, I just think it was done really, really well. I'm sorry. I'm not part of that community. I'm not a gay man, so I don't know how well, you know, the experience translates, but the way it's written, I feel that I, you know, can see the situations through their eyes. So I'm just going to leave it at that. That's all. The next book that I read was The Vampire, the Witch, and the Werewolf by Louisa Barco. I placed this in PNR, Paranormal Romance, and I DNF'd this. This book was boring as hell. Boring. I couldn't even tell you what else. It's supposed to be a threesome between Lily, Lawrence, and Trevor, and I just thought it was boring, and I stopped. I couldn't take it anymore. Not going to do it. Bye-bye. The next book that I finished was Parental Guidance, Ice Knights #1 by Avery Flynn. I placed this in New Adult, and I give it 4.25 stars. And for Steam fans, I read this as an ARC for Reviewathon on NetGalley. I did have this a while ago, and it has been released, so you guys can go check it out. Make sure you do, because it's really, really cute and funny and lovely. I loved it. I also read this because Avery is an Apolycon 20 and 20 author as well, so that challenge was taken care of. Caleb is a hockey star that ends up getting into a little bit of a PR mess when his fellow hockey players were talking smack about the Puck Bunnies, and it got out and people's feelings were hurt. So to do PR wrap up and make his image better again, because he is seen as a leader on the team, he decides to allow his hard-nosed coach of a mother, who's not actually his coach but is a coach of hockey, so she's been coaching him like all his life and stuff like that, so he has to like marry the two personalities. Is this mom or is this coach talking to me type thing, and allows her to take over his dating app. And the whole premise is that she takes over his dating app, and Zara, who has a flaky sort of father who just wants the best for her, takes over her app because she is like a miniature artist. She makes little miniatures and stuff like that, which is pretty awesome. I thought that was a really cool aspect of a character that I had never read before, someone that does miniatures, and I thought that was really cool. But the two of them start out with this like dislike of each other and a sort of preconception of what each other is going to be, and I loved the banter between them. I thought it was really, really cute. I enjoyed the story immensely, and I look forward to hearing more about our Ice Kings, because there are more books coming in this series. The next book that I finished was Mikkel, Brothers of Ash and Fire #2 by Lauren Smith. I placed this in Historical Paranormal Romance. I give it 4.25 stars. I give it 4 Steam fans. I listened to it as an audiobook, and I read it for Romance Genreathon as well as Romanceopoly for the Magic Row, because we are back in the land of dragons, and Mikkel is the dragon brother that was placed in exile because he couldn't bring the jewels home from England. And that is where we start. We get a little bit of a small little tidbit of a history lesson there. Loved it. Was here for it, for England. And yeah, and then it just continues on. Piper is a gemologist. Another like amazing job that I had never thought of before, and it was so much fun. I loved every single moment of it, and I can't wait to get to the third book, because the third book is the brother that is like hardcore war guy, and I'm here for it. The next book that I finished was Passion on Park Avenue, which is the Central Park Pack #1 by Lauren Lane, and I placed this in contemporary. I give it 4.25 stars. I give it 1 steam fan. It wasn't all that steamy, but it was super cute and I loved it. I read it as an ARC. It has been released, but I had it on NetGalley for review-a-thon, getting them in, getting them done. And this book follows Naomi, who is part of the Central Park Pack of Naomi, Claire, and Audrey. These three people, these three ladies, find out that they are the widow and 2 mistresses of a guy that ends up dying. Be gone. So instead of going to their funeral, they end up reluctantly meeting in Central Park, and they become fast friends. So this story follows Naomi's sort of journey of, you know, dealing with her 2 new friends, as well as dealing with a childhood nemesis, Oliver, who used to tease her and make her life a living heck. And you know, I was very entertained with the fact that it was a story of sort of growing up and finding your place, and Naomi has made herself into this it girl, and the only aspect that I didn't particularly care for was that there was sort of a love triangle that was almost introduced but wasn't introduced, because he ends up becoming a douchebag, and you could just, it was just rolling off of him all in throughout the entire story. When this character was introduced, you're like, oh, he's a douche. He is a douchebag and he doesn't need to be in it, so we should have just cut him out altogether. The next book that I finished was How to Love a Duke in 10 Days by Kerrigan Brin. This is a historical romance. I give it 4.5 stars. I give it 2 steam fans. Yes, 2 steam fans. I read this as an ARC, and I read it for review-a-thon from NetGalley, as well as Kerrigan will be attending ApollyCon in 2020, so ApollyCon 2020 challenge. This book deals with some very sensitive topics. There are content warnings for rape, for murder, for marriage of convenience, and death threats and things like that. So if you have any issues with those topics, I would say shy away. But Kerrigan does an amazing job. Once you get past that like first quarter of the book, it starts to really roll with our couple of Alexander and Pierce, and Alexandra, I'm sorry. Alexandra is a young girl who has red hair. She was at a boarding school. Some things happen. She bonds more with the other 2 ladies that are end up getting their own books later on, I'm sure. But they are part of the Red Rogues. And we fast forward a little bit. Alexandra is attending Francesca's wedding, or soon to be announcement of a wedding type thing, and come to find out there is little more to the story than there should be. Like I said, there's some death threats that go on, and it's like a murder mystery almost, but more about their marriage of convenience, and does this turn into love, doesn't this turn into love, should these 2 people be together? And it's a very good portrayal of a strong woman back in the 1800s, and I thought I was here for it. I was here for it. It did, like I said, it did take a little bit to get into Alexandra and Pierce's actual story, because there was a lot of setup in that first 25% of introducing a whole bunch of characters, and then it started to really, really flow once you got into it. The next book that I finished was Write You a Love Song by Fabiola Francisco. I placed this in contemporary. Yes, in contemporary, and I give it 4.25 stars. I give it 3 Steam fans. I read this as an arc, and it releases next month. This book follows Knox and Ainsley. It is a small town love story. Knox is a country star when he decides to quit the business. He moves back to his hometown and lives in his house, and they have to deal with paparazzi and the rumors that are going on while he has removed himself. Ainsley is sort of trying to find herself. She had a bad breakup and pretty much just decided to move wherever the dart towed her to, and the dart towed her to move to this small town where Knox is, and they connect and they find that they can be friends, and it's all about the Frito pies. And yes, I was here for it. It was very sweet and lovely and beautiful, and yeah, I was here for it. Another one. The next book that I finished was Keen, Time of My Life by Theodora Taylor. This is a short story. It's a bully story. I give it 2 stars. I give it 2 Steam fans. I listened to it on the podcast of Read Me Romance. Makes me sad that I didn't like this one, but this book follows Lena and Kane, and they were nemesis while they were in high school, and then fast forward, Lena is on spring break and ends up meeting up with Kane because he's serving drinks at the bar, and they end up hooking up. And this is a prequel to Kane's book that is releasing or has released or something like that, but I have no desire to read that book. He was a douche. He continued to be a douche. And I didn't even know. That's all I'm going to say about that. Then the final book that I read last week was Getting Schooled, Wright Brothers #1 by Christina C. Jones. I place this in urban contemporary. I give it 4.25 stars. I give it 3.5 Steam fans. I listened to it as an audiobook. This is a Black author, and this was recommended by Lauren from the novel Lush, and girl, I have been sleeping on this author. Now, I'm going to give you the negatives so that I can end on a positive on this one. The only reason it does not get a full 5 stars is because there is urban speech and language that is used in it that I am not here for. So when books drop the N-word because that's the language that they want to use, I'm not here for it. It throws me out of a story, it's jarring for me, and I do not like it. Do not like it, which is why I don't read a whole bunch of urban contemporary novels. Not a thing. I don't think it should be in the English language. I don't think it should be in any language. Well, I guess it would have to be in some languages because some languages it's the color. It has different accents on it. But the way that Americans say it, I don't think it should be in the English language, and it drives me absolutely crazy. Like I said, it takes me out of a story, and it makes me cringe when I hear it, and I do not like that word. Do not like it. Do not like it. Do not like it. But the positives about this story was that I have been sleeping on this author. This author had me rolling on the floor with some of the antics our character Reese goes through. So Reese is a grad student who is also the TA for her mother's literature course. And she is hard-nosed, she's well-read, and she is trying to get her life back after some incidences that happen. You learn later on what those incidents sort of are, and I was here for it. I was not here for the ending as well, by the way. Just going back, I was like, what? What? Ending? Why? Abrupt. And Jason is a mechanic, or has this mechanic appearance. He is an older guy that is a military vet using his GI Bill and his, government money to get his degree that he needs, and I was here for that whole, their interaction was like real rough and gruff, and they didn't like each other. He thought that she was bougie and Miss Priss because she wore nice clothes and she had braids and things like, well, not necessarily the braids. He liked the braids part of it, but thought she was bougie and thought that she was just very uppity and all in herself and things like that. And come to find out, there are reasons for that, and they have things that they have in common. Mom is a black don't crack professor. She got people wanting to, hook up with her because she's fine, she's a hottie, and I just loved all of that. I loved all of that. I loved the dynamic between Reese and her mom and her friends, and I love the dynamic between Jason and his brothers, and I am looking forward to reading the rest of these stories because I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Oh, and Dad? Jason's dad? Oh, I was like, oh yes, thank you. He is like a 60-year-old silver fox kind of guy, and I was like, what? Okay, I'm here for it. If you are looking for some black love, this is a author that you need to get behind. Let's quickly go over the things that I am currently reading. I'm currently reading one book, and that is Love and Other Wild Things by Molly Harper for Romanceathon. We're back in Mystic Bayou, by the way, for that one. So that is the things that I read last week, the things that I am currently reading. Yeah, I think that's all I got to say because this video is kind of long this week. So I'm going to wrap this up. First of all, if you have read any of the books or liked any of the descriptions that I gave, please make sure you let me know down in the comment section that you're going to go check them out or your thoughts on them. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Also, there is a feedback form down in the description box so you guys can help me improve my channel. Thank you for watching, and we will see you guys later.